towards you. So besides that, which is your obvious intention, what message are you going to pass to people who are single, or people who are going through problems in their marriages, or people who want to get married? Like, what do you think they could take away from the 3 books as a whole?
Actually, I think the question's a bit convoluted. I think it's a bit muddy, but I kind of feel like I know how to answer it.
Okay.
When I started writing the story, it wasn't so much to share lessons, oh, I know the answer and I want you to get the answer. It was really me exploring questions in my mind, putting them out there, and really asking God, like, if this thing happened, like if your child, a Christian woman loves you, she honors you, she followed you, and she thought that she was hearing from you when she said yes to marry, but then she makes a really big mistake like this. Is there any way out? What is the solution? How is she supposed to work? How does she work in the marriage to save it? And is there ever going to come a point where she needs to walk away? So I kind of knew what I was dealing with, the kind of marriage that I had in mind. Mine was just to figure out what's the solution and where is God in all of this. But through writing the story, I got some answers and I got some lessons across. Like, obviously, don't jump into marriage. Think clearly. Just because it says he's Christian doesn't mean he's Christian. So there's some obvious lessons that came out as I was writing it. But until I got to the last book, I didn't really get the answer that I was really I wanted an answer. So it's not like I wrote it, okay, this is the answer, guys. As I was writing it, I'm like, okay, God, where are you going to come in? What's the solution here? Which way am I going with this? So it wasn't like planned out.
Rachel, in the first book, doesn't really find dog attractive, like from the first instance. Yes. So she sort of, I would say, pushes Ejike to the side a bit because she feels an instant attraction to him, and she thinks, well, that attraction she feels is displacing the presence of God. And so she's wondering to herself, am I doing this because God wants me to do this, or am I doing this because I want to do it? And since she doesn't seem to have an answer to the question, she focuses her attention on God. So I think the question would be, how do single women who are attracted to their partners know whether it's the attraction that is speaking or if it's God? Because they could assume that attraction is something of the flesh, so that's not important, and they could push that aside, and we saw in subsequent books that was a very huge mistake on her part. So how do you know if attraction is attraction or if it's God leading you? Like,
I think hers was a knee-jerk reaction. She didn't explore that attraction. It was like she thought it was bad, and I think sometimes we're like that. We generalize too much, we're a bit too fearful, about certain things, and it's not like it's unjustified, but what I would say is that having an attraction isn't a bad thing. It doesn't mean that the person is from the devil, the person is bad. And I think sometimes we think that God doesn't want what's good for us, or what we like is not what God wants for us. And I think that was another example of that, and just because you like it or you're attracted to it doesn't mean you're not supposed to have it. Those things are just some of the considerations you should be taking on board when you're making a decision. So yes, if you now find yourself in a relationship with someone you don't like and you're not attracted to, doesn't mean that that's your cross to bear and that's your marriage either. So I think the lesson there is we shouldn't be overly religious or fearful when it comes to these things. We need to recognize that God appreciates our what we want as well, and is not out to, give us something we don't like just because it's the holier thing to do.
When the reader is reading, we, long before Rachel admits to herself, realize that her marriage is not what it's supposed to be. It's not going to be a happy one, and we are powerless to stop her, but she goes ahead anyway. And even when she begins to realize, when revelations come forth and that dog is not who he's supposed to be, when Ejike is basically there for the taking and she doesn't,
You still talk about book one, right?
What?
Book one, before she
not
actually married
book one,
him.
not even like book one, he came and expressed his love for her. She still went ahead to marry him. In book two, when Bosse comes with the baby, and dog is obviously quite obviously
spoilers everywhere.
dog is quite obviously not the man she thinks that he is, and she's asking people for their opinion, and they're like, oh, hold on, pray to God, he will provide a solution to the problem, don't rush into things. And we, the readers, we know that this marriage is definitely not going to work. Maybe dog could change, but even as the reader, you're not quite sure you can forgive him for all his atrocities. The question is, when is it okay to walk away, to admit that this is not something that is going to work in line with your personal growth, your spiritual growth? When you admit that it's fine to leave?
One thing that I want people reading the book to get is that marriage and abuse do not have relationship. So it's something I had to learn from writing it as well. Knowing the difference between being long-suffering in a challenging marriage and putting up with abuse, even encouraging it by your silence or your compliance. That is not God's will for us. And the sooner we are able to determine the difference in our experience, that is this a normal challenge? Is this, is this not that there's nothing unforgivable, but finds the abuse and address it, the better for you. You shouldn't wait to the point where you feel like you're about to murder someone or take your own life. If you feel that it's getting to that point, it's best to separate and breathe. I know as believers, divorce is frowned upon and is not encouraged. It's a last resort. But you have to also think about your children, and your life. And you can live to fight another day. So take that break and get your sanity right and assess the situation, Okay, so I want to read this first snippet.
Okay.
It's on page 20, the Naive Wife Rachel's Choice. You there?
Yeah.
The rains are early this year. Fat drops of water fall and make small puddles on the recently manicured lawn in the Eden mansion. And the wind makes a whistling sound through the short pine trees that line the garden. The air is moist and thick, carrying with it the fragrance of the flowers mixed with the stench of manure and stank water from the overflowing gutters on the streets. Rachel watches as their staff below run through the rain to attend to various tasks. The servant girl is hastily packing the sheets she just washed this morning. Poor girl, Rachel thinks. She's going to have to wash them again. Sitting back, safely sheltered in the second floor balcony of the family home, Rachel turns the page in the book she's reading. It's a book about Christian dating and marriage. One of many books she has been reading to grow her knowledge and understanding about faith-based marriage. Her counseling course, though rich in information about ethical practices and psychological insights, lacks the Christian perspective she desires to also gain. Through the sound of the rain, Rachel hears her phone ringing inside. She goes to check the mobile where she left it charging. It's fully charged and she unplugs it. An unidentified person is calling her. She slides her finger across the screen to accept the call. Hello? The voice of an angel. Hello? Who is this, please? Rachel strains to hear the caller. The network connection isn't good. But she thinks she heard a man say the voice of an angel. How creepy. She isn't sure she's interested in the call, but she at least wants to confirm who is calling and why. Hey Rachel, it's Doug. How are you doing? Rachel's surprised and a little irritated, but she's not sure why. How did he get my number? But that's a silly question. Who else would have given him, if not Rochelle? I'm fine, Doug. What's up? I'm in Ukraine, and I thought of you. What are you up to today? A few things. Kind of busy. This rain has got me stranded here. I was about to hit the third mainland bridge when it started pouring. Can I come wait it out at yours? How do you know I'm home? I just figured you would be. You're not on air this afternoon. I told you I'm a listener. I actually wanted to call into your show today. Is he for real? Yeah, Wednesday is my day off. Cool. So can I stop by? I'll leave as soon as the rain lets up. Please? I guess. Yeah, you'll see me now. Moments later, Rachel sees a car pull in front of her house and the horn go off. Really? The lesson was trust your instincts. You know, and this was just an example where her instincts were like telling her, this guy is weird, this guy is not right, this doesn't happen. And she didn't close the door on that. She was being open with him, whereas with the other guy, she shut the book real early.
Yes, I was going to ask about that. So Doug was really persistent, but from the very beginning, you could tell there was something off about his persistence, and she knew there was something off about his persistence. But all she needed to close educate up was a humor, basically.
Yeah.
And so, what was going on in her mind? Like, was it that she was afraid to trust her emotions, or was she trying to make the smart choice?
Well, the thing is, it wasn't just the rumor. Like, she had them in two categories: educate, unbeliever. Doug, he looks like a believer. He hasn't. There's nothing to say that he's not a believer. Let me find out what's going on there. But this one was an unbeliever. Don't matter anything. What's up? Close the door. We're not going there. Do you understand? Even if I'm attracted to this person, you know, the mere fact that he's not a believer, I'm not going to be the one to lead him to Jesus. You know, let him just stay there by himself. Do you understand? So that was just the mentality there. But with Doug, she couldn't say that, especially with, you know, him now sending her Bible verses, inviting her to church events and stuff. You know, he just seemed like nobody's perfect. You know, and he believes in God. You know, there's those people that feel like any two Christians can get together and get married. You know, whether or not he was pretending, that's even another level. Do you understand? But she could sense that there was something not right, but it wasn't as big an alarm to put brakes on it. Lord, I don't know what to do. My marriage is in trouble, and I don't know how to fight for it, how to save it. I feel like it was wrong from the start, but I also know that there's nothing impossible for you to do. Please, God, help us to overcome our problems and love each other the way we should. Please help me to get past the hurt I feel, the disappointment and the pain. Help me to see things your way, and give me the strength to love Doug unconditionally. It feels so hard because I too am human. I need love too. But I pray you will be enough for me, and I can be your minister in this marriage. Lord, please help me. Rachel, please. She pauses to listen for a word from him. The scripture comes to mind. Be on guard. Stand firm in the faith. Be courageous. Be strong. And do everything with love. She looks it up on her phone and learns that it's from 1 Corinthians 16, verses 13 to 14 of the New Living Translation. Rachel meditates on it, especially verse 14. The New King James Version says, "Let all that you do be done with love." From her meditation, Rachel realizes that she has been driven by fear, distrust, and anger towards her husband, and not by love. She turns to the chapter on love, 1 Corinthians 13, and studies it again, verses 4 to 8 being focal. She prefers the wording of the New International Version, which reads, "Love is patient, love is kind. It does not envy, it does not boast, it is not proud. It does not dishonor others. It is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. Love never fails." After meditating on it a while, Rachel returns to meditate on 1 Corinthians 16:13. She knows her faith is being tested by this trial. The temptations to blame God, to doubt Him, or to disobey and look out for number one are strong. But she's reminded of the cross Jesus bore and calls her to bear also. God, please, I need more faith to honor you in my marriage, and I need your grace to stand. Please help me. Abide in me, for without me you can do nothing. Rachel perceives the Holy Spirit as a gentle whisper filters through her thoughts. Encouraged, she remains on her knees, meditating on those words and crying intermittently for strength to endure. That was Hello by Adele, requested by Dami from Ikoyi. I really love that song. It's one I think everyone can relate to. Rachel speaks into her microphone at the studio. So this is the week of love, with Valentine's Day coming up on Sunday. It's also the V week on the Marriage ABC series. Tomorrow, I'll be with Pastor Mrs. Idowu, who is also a marriage counselor, with a lot to contribute to our theme, Victory in the Vine. You don't want to miss it. Next up is the new hit by Justin Bieber, Love Yourself, requested by Obi from Maryland. She takes off her headphones as the song plays on the air. The week of love indeed. It's the second Valentine's Day as a married woman, but she doubts that there'll be any celebration of it in her house. She's been praying and fasting intermittently as she's still breastfeeding, but her marriage feels as cold as ever. Rachel has had to admit the truth to herself, that she was not in love with her husband when she agreed to marry him. She had accepted the teaching that the emotional element of love was not so essential, and thought her feelings would deepen with time. She now realizes, however, that those emotions would have been great stimulants, in her fight for her marriage. Right now, her only motivation appears to be religious duty. Her will to fight does not originate from her heart. A penny for your thoughts, Don Jap says. Rachel looks up at him and gives a small smile. She doesn't want to delve into her issues with her producer, but he looks genuinely concerned. The sigh escapes her lips. Do you believe the emotional romantic element of love is an essential part of real love? Don Jack mutters, pursing his lips. Why are you asking? I thought you covered this on the marriage ABCs already. Yes. Hi, caller, what's your name and where are you calling from? Hi, Rachel, I'm Steve. I live in Oshodi. Nice to meet you, Steve. Are you ready for Valentine's Day? Not quite. I'm nervous. I'm in love with my best friend, but she doesn't know how I feel. I mean, I've never told her. Oh, really? Well, you can't let this opportunity pass you by. You have to tell her. What's her name? Yewande. We've been friends since high school, but things just kept getting in the way. Is she listening? I've sent her a message to tune in. She just did. Can you play Thinking Out Loud by Ed Sheeran? I think of her every time I listen to the song. Oh, that's so sweet. You got it. Happy Valentine's Day to you both. Yewande, this is for you from Steve. Rachel smiles and sits back as the song plays, happy for Steve and Yewande. Closing her eyes, she prays that such pure love that Ed sings about is still possible for her. She can only hope. Okay. Victory in marriage is guaranteed when we are connected to the vine as branches and we abide in Christ, who enables us to do all things. Pastor Idowu says with a smile. Problems arise in marriage when we try to do it our own way, when we try to do it in our own strength, with our own wisdom, depending on our limited and fickle love. Marriage, though of the world, requires divine empowerment to succeed. If you want to succeed, you have to submit to the divine. Rachel mutters. What if one person is trying and the other isn't committed? The marriage can still be saved, Pastor Idowu replies. Though it is hard to do so alone, two people giving up and being selfish and unchristian in a marriage is a definite failure without revival. But if at least one abides in Christ and is dependent on Him, we can call upon Him to arise on our behalf and fight with us for our marriage. And such faith always moves God to act on our behalf. Wow, that's a really tough call. Yes, but this is what is required of each one of us in marriage. To be Christ to our spouse and to love them as Christ loved and loves us. And even the worst sort of marriage can be turned around. I can imagine that a lot of wives and husbands will find this hard to accept. I mean, some people are in very abusive marriages. What would you say to them? I would say, look at me. I did it. I abided with my husband, though he was a philanderer from day one. In fact, the first month of our marriage, I wanted to throw in the towel. I actually caught him in bed with our house help. Oh my God. Yes, oh my God. My heart broke to a million pieces, and I packed up my things to leave that very night. And guess what? Rachel looks on at the pastor. He didn't try to stop me or beg me or anything. He didn't even come after me. I went back on my own after a couple of weeks. I went back on my own about a couple of weeks later when my mother told me that it was God who would fight for me and deliver me if I would just honor His word and my vows. That must have been excruciating. I mean, it sounds like He didn't even care for you at all. It was excruciating. And things didn't change right away. But I made up my mind that His actions were not going to affect my faith in God. I abided and had 3 children for Him. It was not in my time nor power, but God eventually took hold of His heart. And what do you know? We pastor a church today and counsel many married couples. Amazing. I mean, it's awful what you went through, but it's great to see how God came through for you. It's a bit like how Daniel was in the lion's den. His faith was greater than his circumstance, and God honored his obedience. Exactly, Pastor Idowu Beans. So if you're going through a challenge in your marriage and you feel that you cannot survive it, take courage. Trust in God. Victory is guaranteed in the vine. Abide in Jesus, learn from him, follow him to that cross where he died and died to self, and rise up and live for Christ in your marriage. On that note, we'll take a break. When we come back, Pastor Idowu will answer your questions. Don't touch that dial. Rachel's thoughts on yesterday's show with Pastor Idowu. She hasn't been able to stop thinking about it in relation to her marriage. It felt like God was confirming the word he gave her last week. Abide in me, for without me you can do nothing. Rachel prays for more leading and direction, surrendering her will to him. Not my will, but yours be done, Lord. After some more time in prayer, meditation, and worship, she finally feels ready to face the day. Rachel exhales, feeling relief from the burden she has been carrying. She smiles, thinking it's going to be a good day. She can do what it takes to save her marriage because God is with her, and he alone can make a way where there seems to be none. The joy abides with her as she sings worship songs while attending to her daily chores. Rachel breathes in the sweet aroma of the corn fried rice she has just prepared. Tasting it, she confirms that it's her best yet. She picks up her phone to send Doug a message, inviting him to join her at home for lunch. He does so on occasion, usually dropping by unannounced to get some food. Sometimes he calls ahead to inquire and ask her to pack lunch for him to take away. However, she feels that she should make more efforts today. It is Valentine's week, and rather than wait for Doug to show his affection for her, there's nothing wrong with her making the first move. Since it's a day off, she has the afternoon free. She packs up a small picnic basket and gets herself ready to visit her husband at the studio. In the 7 months that she's been back, she's ashamed to realize that she's only visited Doug at his studio on 3 occasions prior. She had just returned with Ezekiel then, and Doug was still kitting out the studio with furniture and sound equipment. Rachel is pleased to see that it is looking rather professional and well equipped now. She admires the wall painting behind the receptionist's desk as she announces her presence. Olumide, why don't you take a seat, and I'll let him know you're here, the young lady says. But just as she is completing her sentence, Doug opens the door to his office and looks somewhat surprised to see Rachel. The woman holding hands with him as they exit the room appears more shocked to see Rachel standing in the hallway, holding her basket. Rachel feels her heart drop to the pit of her stomach at the sight before her. What is Bosse doing here? And why is she holding hands with Doug? To her astonishment, they do not separate their hands, but walk towards her as though it's a very normal thing for them to be together this way. Rachel makes a point of fixing her gaze on their clasped hands before returning to look at her husband's face. Hi, Rachel, Bosse says awkwardly. What? Is that a smile on her face? Gives her a hug and a kiss on the cheek before saying, I'll catch up with you later. Rachel can't bring herself to look at Bosse as she walks past as if she had never seen nor heard of Rachel in her life. Rachel's fuming as she looks at Doug, waiting for an explanation. It doesn't come. He takes the basket from her. Thanks, dear, you saved me a trip. Next time, call first. I'm very busy today, he says as he returns to his office, leaving her standing there frozen, as though she'd been slapped in the face. Why are you laughing? Why are you laughing?
Oh, what a nerve.
Oh my God. But compared to what Pastor Idowu described, what Rachel just went through was very minor.
Reading that thing would make anybody furious on Rachel's behalf. I mean, at that point, don't you think she was a little too passive? She just she could have asked some questions. She was just, what just happened? Even as the reader, you'd be shocked. Like,
she was stunned. Like, okay, she doesn't want to jump to conclusion, but their hands are still together and they're behaving like this is all normal.
But there was such blatant disrespect between the characters. Your wife is sitting there, you are holding somebody who is not your wife, and you're not offering any explanation towards that, and you go as far as hugging and kissing said person goodbye, and then you don't even say hi to your wife, you just take the basket of food, oh thank you, say the chicken, and then you walk back inside, and the wife is just standing there. I have a difficult time imagining in like Rachel just standing there, no reaction.
She's reacting, she's frozen. And we don't always react by shouting. Sometimes you have to like process things. Like, is this really happening? Am I jumping to conclusions right now?
I mean, anybody who reads the book, especially since that was the second part, will know that is a precursor to much, much, much worse behavior somewhere down the line. And so you're wondering, maybe she had reacted then. She wouldn't have had to go through all of that.
You think?
It's possible. Wondering.
You think if she had cried and complained that it would have changed Doug's behavior next time?
Well, probably not, but maybe he wouldn't have been too comfortable getting away with such bad behavior.
So I think there's this general mentality that the way to save your marriage is to take everything, particularly from the side of the woman. So that very faulty, way of thinking, of looking at things, when you just, if I don't want to rock the boat.
So I'm actually looking before she got married.
Okay.
I'm looking back to the fact that she didn't go with her guts by going after the second guy. Okay.
There were red flags.
There were a lot of red flags. A lot of red flags. She come across to me a kind of woman that she's comfortable playing safe, and then now it's biting her
in the back.
And she's thinking, can I still salvage what I know really it's not it?
She's in the marriage and she's praying and she's going for people to give her advice, and you're reading the book like, pack your things. Get out! What are you still doing there? And you're reading and you're flipping through the pages and you're like, she's not left. She's making prawn fry. Why are you making prawn fried rice for me?
Yeah.
So I think that's one of the standing out, or one of the points that stand out.
My
in the book,
goodness.
how passive Rachel is, and how she doesn't seem to respond to stimuli from your obviously neglectful husband. You keep making excuses for him.
Yeah.
You keep seeking advice when
But is this not
solution.
normal behavior?
I think like to a large extent that he is right in that aspect. Whereas women, I think a lot of women are taught that if your marriage fails, it's basically your fault.
Yes.
You're not sharing the blame with your husband because he's a man, and the myth is that he will move on to somebody who's younger, more attractive than you, and so you will have something to lose in this.
And that problem will be inherited particularly by women. We're raising you need to consider the fact that you are raising children, and you are telling them that when they do something wrong, you tell them that one day you're going to get married. The boy child in his lifetime will never hear that. So all of those narratives create a conditioning that marriage is the responsibility of a woman. That mindset. Many women come into marriages like that. So you ask the question, why are you still hanging in there? You say, well, I don't know.
It's a shame to leave.
Yeah. So I think those are major issues that is important for us to consider, because the society itself has a role to play in conditioning, in socialization. So when you look at Rachel, I think she typifies an average African woman.
There are a lot of people might not be so sympathetic with her. As you guys say, oh, she didn't react. It's because you know that dog is not good.
Okay.
She's in the marriage and she doesn't really know yet. There's some
she can't
clues.
see the full picture.
She can't see the full picture, but you guys see it. So if she made that judgment based on what you see, it's not, she couldn't do it. But if she had like reacted and say, how dare you, what is this? The readers will be the one hating on her. So why are you so judgmental? Like,
Okay.
you not even say anything, you jump to conclusions.
Yeah. Just so you feel like, yeah, this person is, I've come of age and I'm so excited there's a suitor in the picture. Have the real talk. It's okay to start humble and all of that, but have the real talk that your child is comfortable to share with you what she thinks are the red flags. And I feel like she did not have that opportunity to go back to our own society and address these red flags, because she felt that, again, they wouldn't listen to her, or they'll be like, oh, you're overreacting. For me, I think it should change. Now, so on one hand, she was all alone in this thing and relying on God to save her. But she didn't have anybody else. I'm not saying God is not enough. God is more than enough. But I think it would have been better if she had her father, whom she was really, really close to, okay, for her to be able to go to and say, these are the red flags that I'm experiencing. She tried actually, but it didn't work out for her.
So parents were adequate guardians. Do you think that they provided adequate help for her when she was going through this very difficult experience?
You mean after the marriage?
After the marriage. Well, before the marriage, after the marriage. There were a lot of red flags before she went in, and there were definitely moments where I think as a parent who loves their child, you should go,
Yeah. I try to paint a typical parent situation where there's a child in the 30s, she has finally got a man to marry, it's almost like, yes, we're taking him. Yes, this is the one, we're taking him. It's like you made your decision, okay, we agree, we're taking him. It wasn't a situation of, oh, you brought someone that wants to marry you. Hey, wait, hold up, who are you? Where are you coming from? Do you understand? It was more like, at last, someone's here to marry our daughter. Hey, that was just it.
Yeah.
And I think that is a very typical thing that happens, especially when the child is up 30 and above. The daughter is just like any man that comes, yeah, we're getting married, let's plan wedding. Do you understand? Everyone's been breathing down her neck about, your sister is getting married and you're not married. You don't even have a boyfriend. Hey, suddenly somebody has come. Hey, the prince has come. Do you understand? That is it. Do you understand? It was a failing in realizing that her age does not mean that she's expired. It doesn't mean that you have to celebrate because somebody's picture. Anyone that comes in the picture, examine left, right, and center the same way. Like if she was just 18 years, do the same thing, because and so those are some of the reasons that they didn't do their due diligence. And then with the advice that she was giving when she came with her, I don't want to go ahead with this. I'm having an issue. You have to pamper him now. You have to do.
There was a moment in time shortly before she got married to Doug, where she said she actually called the wedding planner to cancel the marriage. And the wedding planner goes, well, you can't cancel the marriage except your parents give me permission to cancel the marriage. And I was like, she's the one getting married. Why do you need permission from? She's a 32-year-old woman. She should be able to decide if she wants to cancel her marriage.
They will not cancel it now because she's not going to pay them money. The person that paying them is going to call them.
I think that was a scene in the book where, okay. And it was just something that, you know, really stuck out. I think it sets the tone for the way her parents reacted to the marriage. Because at that point, you know that they are going to say, oh, you just manage, it's fine, you manage. Yeah. And then, dog was not financially responsible, among other things. And you have raised your daughter in a certain type of, in a certain amount of luxury, right? And dog is not providing that for her, so you are still providing it for her in her marital home. And your reaction to that is, oh, don't worry, you will get better. Exactly. Dog may be poor to you, but he's rich to somebody. It is very difficult to imagine, like, a character just shrugging, okay, that's what my daddy said, so. And it's true, because a lot of people have been raised that way. It's the same, you know, your parents' word is law. And so, of course, she went back home to continue to pray to God for guardian. And again, she didn't have any support system where she could go and say, okay, this is what happened. And then the girls are like, because I feel like if she had a group of girlfriends, she would have left the marriage a lot sooner than, you know, she did. True. They would have just been like, pack your things and leave. Yeah. Pack.
But would that have been right?
Oh, I don't think.
Would that have been right? Is that your girlfriend's telling you?
Well, it's not living. I don't think the issue is about living on the word of our friends. It's about somebody opening your eyes to the reality of what is going on. It's about somebody jolting you. It's about your inner circle, being able to see what you are going through and being able to analyze the situation. You know, love, the little I know about it, can sometimes be, when you are involved, there's every tendency that you may not be rational.
Yeah.
There's every tendency that you also look at your investment in the relationship.
Yeah, but,
and you look at it that, how do I want to throw all of this away? Something might just happen. Miracles still do happen. Something may just click somewhere down the line. Let me hold on. But what I've also found is that the way people behave is a function of their mindset. You know, behaviors are fruits of mindset. You know, so when somebody begins to behave in a particular way, then it's a window into who they are. But there's a point you made, which is very, very strong. The readers are basing their judgment on the fact that they see it all.
Yes.
But the naive wife does not see it.
She's inside it.
She's inside it. She's not seeing all the things you know
about dogs.
She doesn't know. And she might not be able to know. So it's easier for you to say, you have the helicopter picture. She has her own part that has been revealed to her, and she has managed to see in the marriage, right? So she's basing her judgment on those things that she see. You are basing your judgment on that which you see also. So there are two. So I think with the benefit of hindsight now, she can now see what you see.
Yes.
Right? And so if she's now seeing what you see, which means if the situation repeats itself,
she would have made different.
She might still take, because what I'm saying is that as at the time, why she didn't take the decisions that everybody expects her to take. If the situation repeats itself, and that was also the information she had, it means her position will have still been the same.
I think I'm going to be realer than I was when I started. When I got the idea to write this, I was in a dark place in my marriage. I was in a dark place, and I was wondering, what if this, you know, because I can say that I'm a bit like the naive wife. And I had a Christian framework that was holding me in, that I was not thinking outside of. Okay, I've got to love like Christ, I've got to endure all things, I've got to do this, I've got to die to self, you know, so I'm on that bit, and I can't, so I had to think, but what if this was the situation? How would I deal with that? How would a woman in my situation deal with that? So that was what got the idea of the naive wife and the story idea. You know, like we think, okay, we give love and we expect love, but sometimes you don't get love back. In your marriage, you're supposed to die to self and you're not supposed to be selfish. You're supposed to be long-suffering, you know. And for that reason, some women have died in their marriage, you know. So I was just, and for me, I had a double responsibility, because not only was I thinking about my experience, I was thinking about the message that I'm also communicating to people who read my books, because I've used my books to address different scenarios and to counsel people going through different things in their marriages, and they counseled me too, you know. And the solution has always been the cross. You die to self, and God will show his hand, and everything will work together in the end, and happy endings. But in reality, not every story ends happily. Doesn't matter. Same way like Christ went to the cross, he died for all of us, but we're not all going to go to heaven. That's just reality.
Yeah.
We're not all going to go to heaven. So even though he died for all of us, we're not all going to go to heaven. So even though you die for, in your marriage, and you give your all, it doesn't mean it's going to end up working out. And so this story was in the way of exploring that situation where you put everything you can, you try to make it work, but it still doesn't work.
At what point do you throw in the towel to say, well, I think I've done all that is expected of me to do, or not what is expected of me to do, really. I've done everything that I know in the book to do. And I think that at this point, I just want to
see what God's going to do.
Call it a day and move on from there. So at what point, when is too much too much? When is it too much to say, well, I think I'm done? How does one get to that point? How do you?
We also ask that question.
How do you know that there was this story that the greatest what did they call it? The greatest discovery of gold was 1 inch before the last miner gave up, and the next miner came and just struck once, and it struck gold. How do you know that the point of giving up was not just 1 inch from repentance, from Vola, I have a new revelation. Wow, I'm sorry for everything I've been doing. How does the naive wife, how does she know that?
It's a risk. To stay is a risk. To leave is a risk. You judge based on what you have information on, and what you value. So even the way I wrote the story, I guess we're giving spoilers now.
You can.
The way I wrote the story, Rachel didn't actually pack up and leave. The way I wrote the story, and I wrote it that way intentionally because I still did not want to.
Okay, Rachel wasn't going to leave.
No, she did not pack up to leave. It worked out in such a way that the decision was made for her.
Yeah, just taking out the balance.
And I wrote it that way because I still was not comfortable writing it in a way that she said, no, I'm leaving, I'm going, and I wasn't comfortable doing that at that point, because I'm still very conscious of the message I'm passing across. So I'm not trying to tell women when to leave their marriages and stuff, but as much as possible, I really like for them to make a very wise decision before they decide who to marry, so that they don't make a mistake and then be enduring, as can end up being the case. All right, let me read this bit then.
Okay.
It's page 80 here, and I think yours is different because
Yes, it is.
Chapter 10.
Yes.
Ufuomaee returns home to find Rachel sitting on the sofa, rubbing her temples as Ezekiel screeches in his play yard. The poor child has obviously been crying for a long time, but for some reason, Rachel is making no effort to soothe him. Ufuomaee first goes to attend to Ezi, taking him out of his play yard and offering him a treat. When he quietens down, she goes to Rachel, who is still sitting on the sofa, her hand cradling her head as she stares into space. Like a widow who just discovered her late husband was in debt by millions of naira. Rachel, what's going on? Are you okay? Instead of answering, Rachel rises to leave the room, but Ihotu reaches for her hand. Rachel withdraws it, stepping back. Rachel, what happened? Ihotu had noticed when she walked into the living room that the wedding frame is no longer hanging on the wall, and now she sees that Rachel's fingers are bare. Her tearful face also indicates that something is seriously wrong. I'm done, Ihotu. I'm done. Rachel sniffles, shaking her head as she wipes her tears. Ihotu swallows. What could have possibly happened between yesterday and today for Rachel to behave this way? Or is this some sort of delayed reaction? Down, Rachel. It's not me you're mad at. Actually, I'm tired of you telling me that I should keep hanging on and expecting something good to come out of this ridiculousness. If he can be forgiven for all he has done to me, to my family, surely I can be forgiven or whatever the hell I'm not supposed to do as the wife. It doesn't all depend on me, and if it does, then fuck it. Rachel! Ihotu reaches for her again. Rachel steps back, lifting her hands to ward off her friend. Leave me alone, I'm done! Frustrated, Rachel crumbles on the sofa and bawls her eyes out. Ihotu goes to her and wraps her in an embrace.
She's not passive after all.
Pardon? Sorry?
She's not passive after all.
Oh, when you flip, you flip.
I think that was one of the few breaking points
Yes.
she had in the book. I think you have to give it to her though. She's a very hardy, very long-suffering character. A lot of women would have broken down in the first part of the book at that moment where her husband was holding her friend. So I think she went through a lot, and then that was the breaking point. That was the moment where she said, I can't continue doing this. So I think that answers this question of when do you know you are done. And I think when you're done, you know you're done. You just thought, I can't do this anymore, and I don't think it's possible to do this anymore. And if I do this, continue in this way, I'm probably going to end up hating myself. So I think there's a point where you get to and you just know that you're done. And so that answers. So I think that is the entire trilogy, and people who haven't read it should. And I would like to thank you for coming